Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And welcome to Sofa Reviews. Today we're watching Riders.
Released in 2002, it's also known as Steal or Heist.
Surprisingly, it's not a romantic comedy, and instead is a heartwarming tale about a group of dickheads.
After robbing the bank, they decide to make their escape on roller skates.
This makes them quicker than police cars because, shut up, they're extreme and don't play by the rules.
They drop off the bags with a friend in a van before escaping the police by being part of a rollerblading race that happened to be happening that same day.
Clearly, the police never thought to look out for the rollerbladers wearing balaclavas.
Having escaped the police and changed into their normal clothes, Slim and his friend Alex help out a random woman who's moving into a house.
He spends a bit of time being a cock to the police before we see the whole gang celebrating their successful heist/steal/riders.
Here we also meet Frank and Otis as they discover that Lieutenant Bruce Payne is on the case.
In the police station, we see Karen, the woman that Slim was helping move in, is actually a recently transferred detective.
After having to put up with Bruce Payne's 1960s sexist cop routine, we join the gang underwater as they practice holding their breath, including Slim trying to drown Alex.
Having had that one afternoon of practice, they set in motion their next heist/steal/riders.
A guy in the back of the truck alerts the police, so they have to go to Plan B.
No! Stop! 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 Stop!
And that's why you should always wear your seatbelt.
This leads to them being followed by several police cars as well as Bruce Payne in a helicopter.
They end up being cornered at the end of a pier and surrounded by the police.
Although this is all part of their plan as they drive the truck into the water.
How will our criminal friends get out of this one? We don't know, and neither did the film, so we just cut to the next day.
For some reason they're rock climbing and Karen happens to be there as well.
After discovering they managed to escape underwater with $2.6 million in change, we find out they also found $20 million in bearer bonds that they weren't expecting.
This leads us to meet one of our main villains of the film, a preacher who is hired to recover the bearer bonds.
Although just before that we'd seen him alone with a large group of children, which seems about as sensible as leaving a prostitute with Jack the Ripper, a planet with Galactus, or a human being with Piers Morgan.
Soon after Slim arranges to sell the bearer bonds to his broker, the entire gang gets kidnapped.
The kidnapper explains that he wants them to do a job for him and will be sending a sidekick along to keep an eye on them.
It's at this point the film remembers that we're supposed to like Slim as he's the hero, so they make the new sidekick a racist, so that he's better by comparison.
I'm going to see that none of the money gets stuck to your sticky fingers. Because if it do, I'm going to shoot off your sweet black ass.
Because they're being blackmailed and in fear for their lives, Slim decides instead of preparing, he's going to go rock climbing with Karen again.
After she beats him in a race, she decides to sneak into the men's sauna.
Slim oddly doesn't seem too relieved to discover it's a woman that was stroking his neck, as his plan of smug, tedious conversation, followed by rock climbing, has inevitably led to sex.
The next day, Slim discovers that Karen is a detective before he starts his next heist/steal/riders.
Otis and Frank crash trucks on either side of the money van on a bridge so that they can take the guards hostage.
Things go wrong, however, when the racist sidekick shoots a guard, who in turn shoots Alex.
So for some reason he decided to shoot Alex rather than the guy who shot him, and also Alex was shot by a guard that they knew was in the truck and yet did nothing about.
Yo, you in there! You can come out on your own or you can get blown out!
They pick up the wounded Alex and leave the racist sidekick behind before parachuting away.
Luckily, the police show up, running him down with a car before throwing him off a bridge.
Before the gang escapes, they decide to collect his body and take it with them.
On the drive back to the hideout, Alex dies, which might be sad if it wasn't so stupid and all of these people weren't assholes.
Shortly after dropping off the money, they get a call from Bruce Payne wanting them to do another job.
Although this time he hasn't bothered disguising his voice, so it's quite lucky that he doesn't have a distinctive voice.
Meanwhile, Slim's broker meets up with the preacher looking to sell him the bearer bonds.
Finally, we see Karen watching footage of the heist/steal/riders and recognising Slim by the tattoo on the back of his neck.
Slim and Frank discover that the broker was killed moments before the preacher shows up.
For no particular reason, Frank decides to get cocky with the threatening stranger demanding the bearer bonds, which doesn't really work out well for him.
eventually tells him that the bonds are in a bank and that it's a weekend, so they'll get them on Monday.
The preacher leaves only for them to then get a call from Bruce Payne with the details for their next job.
They watch footage from a camera they set up at the drop site, discovering Bruce Payne was the one responsible.
Because they have one guy threatening to kill them and another threatening to imprison them, Slim decides to go for a drink with Karen.
She tells him that she knows that he's the one responsible for the heist/steal/riders, but decides not to arrest him.
On Sunday, the preacher catches up with Slim, and because he knows Slim is preparing a heist/steal/riders, he demands Slim gets him $5 million and kills Frank and Otis.
Hey man, I'm on a roll!
We also see Karen telling Bruce Payne that she knows who one of the criminals are, but he doesn't seem too interested.
I got a positive ID on the surveillance tape, and I have his fingerprints.
Fingerprints.
Aside from the fact that Bruce Payne doesn't seem to know what fingerprints are, surely if you have all of that, you can arrest him.
She also explains that she thinks that someone on the police is actually working with them.
That's why they're so good. They're getting inside information.
But they're incredibly shit. Bruce Payne knew who they were straight away, and you allegedly did as well.
What did you think I was doing rock climbing? Found someone who fits the profile.
That evening, they force Otis to be a ridiculous stereotype in order to infiltrate the police station.
Look here, brother. I get paid whether I do the job or not, Sam.
He gets into Bruce Payne's office and takes the money out of his locker, throwing it out of the window.
This is collected by Frank, who's waiting in the van with the cleaning lady they kidnapped.
Hey, lady, I said relax now. You in the back of a van with two good-looking young bucks. What more you want? Jeez, so damn ungrateful. We'll take you back tomorrow. Maybe.
Or they'll rape you and leave your corpse in a ditch. Those jokers.
The next day, Bruce Payne discovers that the money has been stolen from his locker, so they head off to arrest the gang.
We see the police setting up at the bank that Bruce Payne told Slim to break into, as he tells the police that they should shoot to kill. But surely they could do this anyway after the execution of the guards in the last heist/steal/riders.
The police spring into action only to discover that the gang aren't there, as they're in another bank on the other side of the city.
They manage to escape from the crime scene, this time not even needing a cunning plan, as the police are kind enough to drive into a bus.
Slim takes the van to meet the preacher, telling him that Otis and Frank are dead.
Of course, once he gets into the van, Slim explains that he's sat on a landmine, and soon after the police arrive to watch the van explode.
The film then rushes to try and tie up all the loose ends, the gang somehow getting the money back into the locker so that Bruce Payne can be arrested.
We're also shown how Frank, Otis and Slim escape from the van, and were also able to leave 3 bodies for the police, so it was quite lucky that Alex died.
Finally, Karen receives a note from Slim, forcing her to rush to an airport, only to stop the wrong guys as the film ends. And in conclusion, I really enjoyed the death scene of Jerry the Racist. It was absurd and silly, but otherwise I can think of no other positives for this film, so I'm going to put the kettle on.
Right, well, I suppose the first point is that I hate everyone in this film. They're all a bunch of smug, self-satisfied arseholes. The closest to a likeable person was Otis, and that's because he didn't really do much, so there was less to dislike. Until, of course, he was the comedy, racist stereotype, and then he joined the rest of the cast on my I hope you die painfully list. The plot is just riddled with holes, the main one being how they escaped when underwater, but also why they felt the need to start collecting bodies in the first place. They never explain how they knew which cleaning lady to kidnap, why they bothered to send the letter taunting Karen when she could easily just contact the Brazilian police to arrest them when their plane landed, and finally, surely the guys who are after their bank bonds could just hire someone else to hunt them down.
It's not the worst film ever made, but there's very little good to say about it. It's not unwatchably bad, but there's just nothing to root for and nothing really enjoyable happens in the film.
I imagine this film must appeal to some people, presumably smug, self-satisfied arseholes, too busy thinking about themselves to think about plot.
Hey man, I'm on a roll!
He spends a bit of time being a cock to the police before we see the whole gang celebrating their successful forgot to breathe.
That happens when you're watching this movie.
Yep. You're in the men's sauna and someone strokes the back of your neck.
I'm gonna get bombed.